and depository participants, which is going to be your fifth chapter. Does anybody recollect how many members are there in the main board of out of the 8 members? 2 members are streets. How many from RBI will be nominated? Is it 1 or 2? From RBI, it will be 1. How many whole-time members are there in total, apart from these? 8 whole-time members and 2 part-time members. This is how the structure of SEBI looks. 1 chairman, 2 nominees from the central government, Ministries of Finance and Ministry of Corporate Affairs, 1 nominee from Reserve Bank of India, 3 whole-time members and 2 part-time members. How many members does SAT have? Minimum? SAT also has 3 members. What is the chairman of SAT also known as? Chairman of SAT. What is the name for him? They are called presiding officers. What are the 2 types of members that are part of SAT? What are their names? Judicial member and technical member. Very good. Presiding officer and which other member have the same qualification? The judicial member have the same qualification. What are the qualifications? They have to be one of the 4 types of judges. Who could they be? Judge or Chief Justice of High Court, or a High Court judge for 7 years if they are presiding officers, and High Court judge for 5 years if they are judicial members. What is the most common amount collected as penalty by SEBI for any contravention or offences? Minimum 1 lakh, sir. Minimum is 1 lakh. Very good. And it can extend up to 1 crore. And what is the extension amount? Minimum 1 lakh is the starting point. So that's the minimum penalty. 1 crore is the maximum penalty. What is the extension penalty? It can extend up to 1 lakh per day. Now, what is the maximum penalty SEBI can collect? Apart from this,
3 times of the profit or 25 crores.
Or 25 crores, whichever is lower or higher?
Higher, sir.
Whichever is higher. And SEBI has common powers. It has regulatory powers, registration powers, powers to make laws, powers to impose penalties. It has 3 additional I-based powers: inspection, investigation, and inquiry. It has SSC powers: search, seizure, and confiscation. And in addition to that, it has the basic powers of any other quasi-judicial authority. Now, depositories in India come under SEBI, obviously, and they also are lower than a stock exchange in terms of the hierarchy. So usually NSDL and CDSL report to stock exchanges for certain compliances and SEBI for certain other compliances. NSDL stands for National Securities Depository Limited, and Central Depository Services of India Limited is CDSL. Both of these authorities exist only because of the stock exchange and only because of DMAT. DMAT is the process of converting a physical share certificate into an electronic security. Just like you deposit currency into an ATM and it magically appears into your bank account, similarly, if you deposit your securities with NSDL and CDSL, it will then appear in your DMAT account. Therefore, this is the process through which these securities are getting converted, and NSDL and CDSL are the caretakers of these securities, and to help you convert these securities, they have certain intermediaries called as depository participants. A physical share certificate typically has additional compliances because you have to keep it safely, you have to pay stamp duty for a share certificate because it has value, and usually custodian is an intermediary that is generally responsible for all such activities. But once you convert it to electronic security, you don't have to worry about the physical safety of that particular share certificate. Plus, you don't have to pay stamp duty at all for any of the electronic securities. So that is going to be much cheaper and more convenient, which are some of the advantages of DMAT. So this entire system where the stock exchange, depositories and depository participants are interlinked with each other, that system is called as the depository system. So in this system, obviously we have NSDL and CDSL, and we also have the depositories and depository participants. There are two functioning depositories only in India. Just like a bank takes care of your money, depositories will take care of your securities. Whenever you receive a dividend, they will contact the company and take it and deposit in your DMAT account. Whenever the company declares a bonus issue, they will send you an intimation. Whenever the company organizes a meeting, they will again send you SMS alerts, etc. Whenever there is important events like IPOs, rights issues, conversions, mergers, amalgamations, subdivisions, depositories are the people who will first get the information after the stock exchange. In stock exchange, you have to go and search for these information, but as a depository, it is actually their duty to inform you regarding this. Hence, they play a much more important role than a traditional stock exchange, because as an investor, you don't interact with a stock exchange, only brokers do. But you always will be interacting with the depository participants and depositories. Depositories also, just like stock exchanges, in India there are two, BSE and NSE. You would notice a lot of similarities right from their name. If you notice, NSDL is National Security Depository Limited. There's no India there. Just like that, BSE is BSE Limited, Bombay Stock Exchange Limited. Whereas NSE, on the other hand, also has India in its name. Now, whether they're going to change all of this into Bharat and what all of this is going to turn into, only the future awaits. But as of now, everything is considered to be India, even in the names of all of these authorities that are existing from many decades and perform very important functions. Also, both of them, that is stock exchanges and depositories, they are companies. They themselves are public limited companies. So you have additional responsibility as a company to comply with Companies Act. So they themselves will comply with Companies Act, and you have to then comply with Depositories Act. So that's how the additional burden on depositories is created, they are also kept in check by ensuring that since they are themselves companies, they can't take your money really and run away, or at least they're not trying to run away till now, like many of the other major corporations who used to exist in India. So now it's all about understanding what this demat and remat process is, who and all are involved, and that pretty much is what the chapter is going to be. Now, dematerialization and rematerialization are the process of converting physical to electronic is demat. Electronic to physical, sometimes people will request, especially when there is a death of a family member and the person who's surviving doesn't know how to operate electronic accounts, or they are slightly not very literate, or they are not comfortable in managing these accounts electronically, then they will request for physical share certificates back. Whenever there is a redemption of mutual funds, or whenever you want to invest in a mutual fund, again you contact a depository. The clearing corporations in stock exchange. The clearing corporations perform two important functions. One is ensuring payment, another is ensuring delivery. Depositories regularly work with clearing corporation to ensure that every security reaches the buyer's account, and every amount of money reaches the seller's account. So they are always constantly working with clearing corporations. Whenever any company or individual invests in securities, they might even use the security to take a loan. So they might pledge or hypothecate these securities by taking a loan. Even then, you have to inform these depositories. And in addition to this, you can also appoint nominees for your demat account. You can freeze your demat account if needed. And whenever there is any dividend or bonus issue, they will intimate you. So just like a bank holds money, depositories hold securities. Bank helps in money transfer, depositories help in security transfer. Bank will transfer and handle money on your behalf, and they don't have to physically transfer any money. Without physically transferring, they can still ensure that money reflects in other people's accounts. And it also facilitates transfer of ownership without any transfer of actual physical securities in demat account. So all your money and all your securities are going to be safe in both of these accounts. So just like any electronic system, compared to reading with physical books and electronic books, or compared to having physical currency and electronic currency, the advantages of having anything in electronic format are going to be the same. It's going to be cheaper, it's going to be faster, and it's going to take less time. Plus, it will probably be more efficient, and it will give you more data or information whenever you want. These are always the advantages of shifting to anything electronic. Whether you are shifting from reading in physical books to electronic, even if you go to Amazon, if let's say you want to buy securities law, any reference book for, let's say, taxman, the physical taxman book will be 500 rupees. But if you buy a Kindle or an electronic ebook, it will probably be not even half the cost. So it's cheaper. Same way, depository system is also going to be much more efficient because it eliminates bad deliveries. Everything is tracked online, so bad delivery never happens. Every buyer will receive the delivery on time. It eliminates the requirement for having physical securities, so printing cost is reduced, transfer cost is reduced, registration cost is reduced, rights and bonus issue money is received and sent much earlier. Whether there's a rights issue, people would definitely want to send money to the company directly. So they even have facilities like UPI to directly link to your bank account, and directly money will be deducted, or you can even set up auto pay facility for these transactions. Brokerage is much lower for electronic securities, so again saving cost. Postage loss or courier person losing your share certificate, all of these issues are also minimized. And problems of selling to a minor. Remember, Contract Act does say that all contracts with a minor are not contracts at all. They are agreements and they are void ab initio. So you don't have to worry about that at all because you won't be able to create a demat account unless you are a major. But you could sell physical securities to a minor and there could be more problems. So lesser problems, it's cheaper, it's faster, it has lesser issues, and it is much more efficient. The people who assist these depositories are called as depository participants. They will handle all these requests that we just talked about. Usually, depository participants themselves are stockbrokers many times. Every bank usually has a stockbroker division, a clearing corporation division, and a depository participant division because banks already have branches all over the country. So it's very easy for them to manage these transactions for different types of investors across the country. Now, issuer is nothing but the company itself. So the company that is issuing the shares, they are called as issuer. And whenever a company issues any new set of shares, instead of the investor talking to the DP, the issuer company will talk to the DP directly. Whenever they declare rights or bonus issue also, they will be the person who will first inform the DP. Investor will not know. And whenever investor wants to convert his electronic shares to physical or physical to electronic, they don't have to talk to the DP first. They have to first talk to the company. Company will first confirm whether you are a shareholder or not. Only then they will send the request to the DP. So company that has issued you the shares, they also play quite a significant role in this entire demat-remat process. Demat, as we said, is the process of conversion into electronic securities. So the process is very straightforward. You first open a demat account. You file a DRF or demat request form. This question is quite frequently asked in the exam, so you can mark this as important. This demat request form will then be sent to the DP. DP will intimate NSDL and CDSL. NSDL and CDSL will intimate the company, that is the issuer. And if the company has appointed any registrar or share transfer agent, who's a primary market intermediary we studied in the first chapter, these people will then check whether your certificate is valid or not. You don't have any fake certificate. Once the company confirms that your certificates are genuine, they will then confirm it back to depository. Depository will then credit your demat account by intimating the DP. So the process is investor to DP, DP to depository, depository to company, and then the cycle comes back. A remat request will also be the same, and instead of demat request form, you will fill a remat request form. First, you will fill it with the DP. DP will then send it to the depository. Depository will then check with the company whether these electronic shares are valid or not. Then they will ask the company to print new share certificates. Then company will give it back to the depository. Depository will then hand over the physical share certificate to you. So the process is pretty much the same. Instead of DRF, you have RRF, which is remat request form. So they could have given you the same table, but just so that you get confused and study 2-3 times, they've given you a different type of table. The process pretty much is going to be the same. So you have RRF instead of DRF. Then DP will enter the request. DP will intimate the depository. Depository intimates the company. Company prints the certificates and then company ensures that the electronic securities are valid. They inform the depository, and then your account will not be credited. This time your account will be debited. All these requests are usually handled through a ISIN, which is assigned to different securities. So whether you have buy an equity share or a preference share or a debenture or a warrant, everything has an ISIN number associated to it. That way they can easily track all these transactions. Now, how do you open a demat account? Pretty much you can ask any bank. They will do it in a much more simpler form than what is mentioned here. But you basically need to give ID and address proof for your KYC. You need to provide some sort of a minimum balance also. Some demat accounts require a minimum balance. So the investor will first approach the DP. DP will then take your form and KYC request. They will send it to the RA or the KYC registration agency. That registration agency will then verify your PAN, address, Aadhaar, and other proofs, and then they will confirm whether you are an actual human being or not, and then they will activate your account, and they will send you some booklet, just like you get when you get a debit or credit card. The process is quite straightforward. So who are the people involved in this entire process? Issuer, depository, DP, and investor. So each of these authorities have separate agreements amongst each other. Issuer has an agreement with NSDL CDSL. NSDL CDSL has an agreement with the depository participant or DP. DP has an agreement with you. You don't have an agreement with the company. You don't have a direct agreement with NSDL or CDSL. You only talk to the depository. Depository participant only talks to the depository and investor. Depository talks to the issuer and DP only. So they ensure that everybody is independent, everybody doesn't have each other's data shared with themselves to minimize their interdependency. Now, whenever you open this demat account, you have to obviously be given an ID. So you will be given two IDs. One is DP ID and another is client ID. Using client ID, you can install apps and log into your demat account on your phone. But using DP ID, you'll be able to track your demat account activity. So it makes it easier for NSDL and CDSL. NSDL DPID will start with the letters IN, and CDSL DPID will start with some random numbers. So if you find a DPID with IN as the starting, it is a NSDL DPID. So this is to differentiate whether you have an NSDL account or a CDSL account. For example, if you open an account with ICICI Bank, it will typically go to NSDL. But if you open it with Canara Bank, it usually goes to sometimes CDSL, as far as I recollect. So that way they can easily track which DP is handling this, and it is easy to give you information using this. Now, Depositories Act itself has 5 chapters. So we have seen who are the different parties, what is demat request, what is a remat request, and how does the depository system function. Now, just like any other act, first chapter is always definitions. Second chapter this time for Depositories Act is about commencement of business. Third chapter is about rights and obligations of different parties involved. That is you, that is the investor. You are called as beneficial owner. Issuer is the company. Participant is the DP. And depository is NSDL and CDSL. They can also conduct inquiry if you are found to be not compliant. And SEBI also has the powers to conduct inquiry on the depositories, and then there is the miscellaneous chapter. Objective of depository system obviously is to minimize paperwork, minimize stamp duty obligation, minimize illegal transactions as much as they can. So important definition includes beneficial owner, any person whose name is recorded as a beneficial owner with the depository. Bylaws are the articles of association of the depository, because NSDL and CDSL are companies themselves. So they have their own bylaws. Depository is any company formed under Companies Act and registered with SEBI. Issuer is company. Registered owner is any person whose name is entered in the register of the issuer. So in company's database, usually you, the investor, will be the owner. In depository database, usually depository participant will be the owner. And in depository participant database, again, investor will be the owner. So depository participant sometimes can also be the beneficial owner. Depends on the nature of these transactions. Now, if you want to yourself start depository services, let's say you want to start a third entity like NSDL CDSL, or you want to provide these services. You have to be a company first. You should have a net worth of 100 crores. Net worth means paid up capital plus free reserve. So the owners of the entity should pay 100 crores because we need a nationwide operation. You should then register the company. Then you should apply with SEBI and register as a depository. Then get your MOA and AOA approved by SEBI. And under you should then appoint DPs or depository participants. And these depository participants also should maintain eligibility criteria. So very straightforward process. Only thing you need to remember is 100 crores. So you have to be a company. You have to get registered with SEBI. You should have 100 crores net worth. You should have nationwide operations. You should have MOA, AOA approved. And if everybody is happy, you will get registered. Then you start making those agreements. Depository has agreement with issuer. Depository also has agreement with DP. Investor has agreement only with DP. So investor and issuer, the two I's don't meet. The two D's do meet. For depositories and depository participants, they will have an agreement. And issuer company will also have an agreement with depository, but investors don't interact directly with the company. Whenever you want to get back your securities or surrender your securities or convert them, you directly have to talk to the depository participant only. You will not talk directly to the depository. Now, apart from this, they have powers of SEBI again. Pretty much the penalties are going to be the same, guys. I don't know why they keep repeating this. It's literally given to you in the previous chapter. Alright, we might as well do it. Now, as a beneficial owner or a registered owner, you have the right to ask for information. You have all the rights and benefits that will be given to you by the company, and you have the right to receive any dividend or bonus on time. Now, fungibility refers to the ability to easily convert into electronic form. For example, if you deposit 200 rupee notes in your ATM today, tomorrow if you go and withdraw 200 rupees, will you get the same 100 rupee note or will you get a different 100 rupee note? What do you guys think? If you deposit 200 today in an ATM and withdraw it tomorrow, are you going to get the same currency note or are you probably going to get a different?
Different, sir.
But does it still give you the same value of 200 rupees or does it reduce in value?
It gives the same value, sir.
That is what is called fungibility. Whether you deposit, suppose your share certificate has number 1823. You deposit with a depository participant, then you got electronic shares. After a few months, let's say you want to convert remat back to physical share certificate. Suppose you want your share certificates back. Will they give you the same share certificate number? The answer is no. They could give you any other number also. It pretty much retains the same value, just like currency note. So your share certificates pretty much don't have any value once you deposit with a depository. That concept of retaining the same value, irrespective of which currency note you have or which security certificate you have, that is called as fungibility. All certificates of the same security become interchangeable, just like all currency notes of the same denomination become interchangeable. If you give somebody $100, you can get 250s, or you can get 520 rupee notes, or you can get 10 rupee notes. It doesn't matter. It retains the same value. That is what is called fungibility. You can also pledge your shares. Make sure that if you pledge, you should inform the depository participant before you pledge the same. You also can go for opt-out or opt-in secure option whenever a company goes for any updation of records. They will always intimate the depository that they are closing their books. We saw this under book closure and record date. Book closure is usually done for a prolonged period of time. The record date is usually done for a single date. Those days, whoever buys or sells the securities, it doesn't matter. These transactions will not be recorded. So you can opt out for these securities also. And for some reason, if the depository loses your share certificate, you went for dematerialization and after a few months, you find out that your securities are lost and the company is not ready to give back your share certificate when you send a remat request. So in that case, they will be liable for negligence. Alright. Powers of SEBI, same as previous chapter. Same powers. Inspection, investigation and inquiry. Power to give directions and power to make regulations. Same as previous chapter, so I'm not really going to go into much of this. They can call for any information from any depository or DP. They can conduct inquiries, investigations, inspections, search, seizure, confiscation. They can also give directions to any depository or depository participant. They can make regulations for these depositories and depository participants. And if you don't follow SEBI orders, you'll be paying a penalty. And as you can guess, what will be the penalty value? What will be the minimum penalty here? Does it look like a serious offense or normal offense? It looks like a normal offense. So what will be the penalty here?
So minimum 1 lakh.
1 lakh can extend up to 1 lakh. And what is the max?
Minimum is 1 crore.
So no need to go through these things. You have the same amounts. Only serious offense here is this: failure to conduct business in a fair manner. If you remember in previous chapter, we saw UTP and FTP. What is the full form of UTP, FTP? Unfair or fraudulent trade practices, right? What was the penalty for that? That was 25 crores or 3 times the profit made. And this time the minimum penalty is 5 crore rupees. So UTP, FTP, if it is done by a depository, it is the same 3 times the profits made or 25 crores, whichever is higher. But the minimum penalty will be 5 crores. And if you're not happy with any of these penalties and if you don't want to pay it, you can always go for compounding of offenses, which obviously is not in your syllabus. But if any individual fails to pay any penalty imposed by SEBI like this, and if you don't pay the 1 lakh or whatever amount, you are also punishable with a term of imprisonment which may extend up to 10 years. If you contravene any of these provisions given under Depositories Act, and if you fail to pay the penalty, then 1 month to 10 years can be the imprisonment period. The penalty is obviously going to be remaining the same, but the maximum penalty that SEBI can collect, irrespective of whatever happens, is 25 crores. So there are 2 types of people. Remember, if you are a depository which contravenes these offenses, in that case, your fine and penalty eligibility will be different. But if you're an individual, then you are eligible to go to jail. So if an individual contravenes the act, up to 10 years imprisonment and maximum 25 crores fine. And if you don't pay the fine, then 1 month to 10 years of extra imprisonment and again 25 crores of fine. But if you're an artificial person, if you're not a natural person, you can't send a company to jail. So in that case, they will send officer in default. Officer in default is for a factory. It will be a occupier. For government, it will be head of the department. For any different type of entity, it will be the owner. And if it's a company, it is usually a director. So since it is contravention by company, any director, manager, or secretary. First, they'll take the director. If directors are absconding, then manager will go to jail. If manager is absconding, then secretary will go to jail. Sometimes they might even catch all the three and put all of them in jail if the offense is serious in nature, especially fraudulent or unfair trade practices. You can also compound any of these offenses similar to other laws. If you pay the maximum penalty, you can avoid the imprisonment. If you directly end up paying whatever fine they say, let's say SEBI says pay 2 crores, and let's say you pay 2 crores, you will avoid whatever jail time that they will have to impose. Remember, in some cases, minimum imprisonment is 1 month. You can avoid that minimum imprisonment by paying the maximum fine that SEBI is asking you to pay. But very conveniently, just like government does all the time, irrespective of whoever is in power, central government and its officers, if they recommend, you can get immunity. You will not be caught. You don't have to pay any penalty. You don't have to pay any fine if you are given this immunity. So central government will get recommendation from SEBI. And if central government feels that this person doesn't have to go to jail, then they will not go to jail. That's it. Now, who's above SEBI? Above SEBI is the central government. So if central government is not in function, the country itself will be in trouble. So if SEBI doesn't do its job properly, central government will make the rules. So central government has the power to conduct inquiry, inspection, and investigation. Central government has the power to search, seize, confiscate. Central government has the power to make rules and regulations. And if you are not happy with any of these provisions, which entity will you go for appeal under securities law? Always there is one entity.
Supreme Court?
No, it is SAT. Securities Appellate Tribunal, which we discussed in the previous one. SAT onwards, direct appeal is with the Supreme Court. So whether you have problem with SEBI or whether you have problem with central government, we can only go to SAT or appeal. Now, as depositories make their own please mute yourself. Depositories articles of association. Anjali, please mute yourself. Depositories have all the clauses that a company will have in its articles of association, which means how will they deal with securities, what are the conditions, what is the eligibility criteria to admit DPs, how will they process transactions, how will they safeguard investors' interest, because everybody's objective is POII. What is the objective of this subject? What does this stand for? Every authority in this subject has the same objective.
Protection of investor interest.
Yes. Whenever in doubt, you can use that answer. All right. So to ensure that depository can frame their articles in any manner they want. Now recently in 2018, the old DP regulations were modified and new provisions in relation to audit and reconciliation have been introduced. So once in a while, SEBI used to reconcile the records of the depositories, but now they have appointed an agent from the company, or the company itself has to reconcile its own demat records from time to time. And the depository will also have to do the reconciliation. So this type of reconciliation is called reconciliation of share capital audit for companies. and depository also being a company, they will also do this reconciliation. Usually, company secretaries get an opportunity to do this type of audit, even though CAs can also do the same. So it also creates one more practice opportunity for all PCS. And in addition to this, you can also do a quarterly audit on the concerned stock exchanges, even though most of these audits still continue to go to CAs. CSs have been picking up most of these work off late. So all the depositories, in addition to the reconciliation audit, have to also perform additional audit on a quarterly basis, confirming that they have resolved all the investor grievances. So you can, to remember easily, you can call it Investor Grievance Redressal Audit, IGRA. So depositories will consistently get so many complaints from so many thousands and thousands of investors. They have to resolve all the complaints within 21 days. Whether they have resolved or not, how many complaints are pending, why they have not resolved, all that justification has to be given to this auditor, and then the auditor will submit his audit report, a copy of which will be submitted to Stock Exchange and SEBI by the depository. So, in addition to the reconciliation audit and the investor grievance redressal audit, you also have an internal audit. Simple internal audit is for processes, whether all the processes are functioning properly, whether they are efficient, and whether all the operations of the depository participant is functioning properly. For that, instead of depository, DP is going to get this audit done. So depository has two audits, a reconciliation audit and a investor grievance redressal audit. A DP, on the other hand, has a internal audit in addition to its statutory audit requirements. And again, this audit also can be done by all the three professionals, but company secretaries are again picking up more of these audits of late. This is a process and operations audit where you check once every 6 months whether all the processes are functioning properly. IGRA is a quarterly audit, and the reconciliation happens very regularly, though there is no audit, but it goes through a professional and then reaches the end. During internal audit, you check all the ID and address proofs. You check any power of attorney if given. You check whether all the delivery instruction slips, whether you placed a buy order or a sell order, whether they've been executed correctly or not, whether KYC is done properly, whether any modification has happened in address or name or anything like that, and whether there is any freezing orders, whether there was any pledge or hypothecation. All these data you will check and give your auditor once every 6 months. The scope for charging lots and lots of money is very high because DP has, again, thousands and thousands of transactions, so the scope of audit is huge. So you can charge quite a significant chunk of money to complete this audit if it comes to you. Since all these transactions are happening online, the depository and the depository participant have few additional compliances. Starting with DPs, DP have to submit a declaration from their MD, CEO or partner who is in charge, ensuring that they have complied with all the SEBI circulars. They also have to do what is called as a cyber audit. So the second audit for DP is cyber audit. One internal audit and one cyber audit. So two audits each for DP and depository. You also have to ensure that your business operations have personally identifiable information for each of your customers. You make sure that your data is safe both internally and externally. And you also ensure that you have performed vulnerability assessment and penetration tests periodically, just to check whether your servers are not getting hacked, just to check whether your information is kept safe. So this test at least has to happen once a year. It's not an audit, it's a test, which DP has to carry out. As a CS, you can appear for investor grievances resolution You can do the internal audit. You can do the reconciliation of share capital audit. Like entire chapter, they did not use the word, and at the end of the chapter, they use the word. So this is the audit I was talking about. And then you can also do what is called as concurrent audit, which is a specific audit for your DISs done separately. So as a CS, you only have this scope for this particular chapter, and I think that concludes the chapter also. All right. So very straightforward chapter, not a lot of language. Next Tuesday, I'm planning to probably next Tuesday or Thursday. I'm not sure. One of the days I might not be available. So what I'm thinking is every 5 chapters, I usually do a revision class of all the 5 chapters done. There are 16 chapters in total, so I'm planning to do 3 revisions in total, just for the benefit of people who sometimes have logged in late or not been able to log in due to other reasons. My next class is just make sure that you guys try to log in and try to cover up the missing portions that you could not do. So this pretty much is 1/3 of your syllabus.